Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host today, Nick Robin, and let us begin. So a little about my life going on this week. Just, I don't know, same old, staying in my room, applying to jobs, and frustrating last week. Applied to this company and really thought I had a shot at the job, but unfortunately woke up to an email from one of the people I had interviewed with to find out that I didn't get it. And I don't want to go into too much detail here, but it sucks when you get denied for a job that you really think you're qualified for, if not even overqualified for. We're living in tough times right now, and the job market is just so competitive. Because as good as you think you are as an applicant, there's probably 3 to 4 at least other people out there that are just as good, if not better for you for that specific job. Just got to stay positive, have a final interview next week, and it's going to be interesting to see how I go about the podcast while also working a full-time job, because it's been a little bit easier right now because I've had so much free time, which I think at times has made me less productive. I would always be told when you were younger, the busier you are, the more productive you will be. And I feel at times I find myself being a little bit lazy because I have too much free time on my hands. And that's why maybe I haven't met every deadline on time, even speaking about this episode right now. But let's move on. On today's show, I'll take a look at the recent MVP announcement and how it ticked off LeBron. Then the Celtics finally get a win. And do they have it in themselves for a serious comeback? Lastly, I'll examine this year's All-NBA teams. But first, let's take a look at the Lakers' Game 1 win over the Denver Nuggets. They cruised to victory on Friday night. The Lakers playing in their first Western Conference Finals in 10 years. And outside of the first quarter, the Lakers had control of the game the entire way, cruising to a 126-114 victory. Davis came out big, putting up 37 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. And for all you stat heads out there, as of right now, Anthony Davis is the only player in NBA history to average at least 28 plus points per game and 10 plus rebounds in less than 35 minutes played per game in NBA history. Pretty impressive, and that's the thing that, as a Laker fan, you should be salivating over the fact that LeBron and AD have not had to play major minutes this entire postseason thus far, and they're in the third round, and both guys are averaging under 35 minutes per game. This is the lowest amount of minutes LeBron has ever averaged in the postseason. So James put together a solid stat line, playing only 31 minutes, 15 points, took only 11 shots, making 6, 12 assists, and has played very limited minutes this postseason. He's only passed the 40-plus minute mark once this postseason, and that was in the first round in Game 1 against the Portland Trail Blazers. Put this into perspective, LeBron from 2010 to 2018 averaged 41.4 minutes per game. This year, only 33.9 minutes per game. So that's great to see. He's very well rested. Aside from having several days off prior to this series, he's been playing limited minutes this entire postseason, which is great because once they get to the finals, he's going to play the entire game. If they're not leading, if they don't have a big lead, he's playing the entire game. He wants that fourth championship, and with each game, one after the other coming, it's like I don't see anything that's going to stop him from getting that elusive fourth championship. And the team looked great offensively. The Nuggets, outside of that first quarter, looked discombobulated the entire game. And looking at the Lakers, they moved the ball around very efficiently. They shot 53% from the field and assisted on 33 of 44 field goals. Rondo had 9 assists in just 22 minutes and passed Michael Jordan for 10th all-time in the playoff assist list leaders. And he could get as far as 6 all-time. Larry Bird is only 39 assists ahead of Rondo. So more than likely, the Lakers at minimum are going to be playing 7 more games. If he can average 6 assists over those 7 games, he will pass Larry Bird for 6 all-time. And it's really great to see Rondo, Dwight Howard, and LeBron James, 3 guys who are in their mid-30s, still impacting NBA games. LeBron, of course, the best player on the Lakers. Dwight Howard was amazing in this game. And prior to the season, Howard assured the team that he would do whatever they needed from him this season, which he's done. So to prove it, he was the one who came up with the idea of a non-guaranteed contract that would give the Lakers the ability to cut bait with him at any time, thereby holding him accountable for his play and his actions. And on Friday night, in the first 7 minutes alone, he had multiple alley-oops, drove hard to the basket, blocked 2 shots, created 2 steals, and drew 4 fouls. He gave Jokic fits, and for the first time in Nikola Jokic's postseason career, he picked up 3 fouls prior to halftime. So that's great to see when you can take out the team's best player. You can't get any better than that. So after the first quarter, the Lakers trailed 38-36. 38 points in a quarter, that is a ridiculous amount. The other team's basically on pace for 152 points. And after that, from the second to the third quarters, the Nuggets were outscored by 25. Lakers scoring 67, Nuggets with only 42. So, yes, those 6 days of rest, as we talked about on last week's podcast, did help this Lakers team, while the Nuggets came off their second straight Game 7. So they played a total of 14 games, now 15, while the Lakers have played only 11. So, yes, the Nuggets have a younger team, and they don't need as much rest as a team like the Lakers, who Rondo, early to mid-30s, LeBron, Dwight Howard in the same boat. While the Nuggets have more young legs with Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., really their only player in the rotation over the age of 30 is Paul Millsap. And the second quarter had some controversy there. The Nuggets were foul infested throughout the quarter, and it begs the question, did the Lakers get star treatment? The Nuggets committed 16 fouls in the second quarter, leading to Murray and Jokic both getting in early foul trouble, as both players had to sit out some of the second quarter. 7 minutes for Jokic and the last 3.5 minutes for Jamal Murray. That's never a good recipe to have your 2 best players sitting out heading into halftime. The Lakers were able to shoot 24 free throws. To compare that, the Nuggets only shot 28 for the entire game. But if you look at the overall comparison, the Lakers only shot 9 more free throws than the Nuggets. That probably accounts more, though, for that fourth quarter when the Lakers took out their starting players and they weren't driving to the basket as much because it was a big lead at that point. And despite the 2 stars missing time, the Lakers could only extend the lead to 70-59 prior to halftime. And it wasn't just the Lakers superstars that performed. You got to look at the bench depth. KCP and Markieff Morris combined to hit 6 out of 9 3-pointers. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was 6 of 10 for 18 points. And you need guys like that, the rotation to step up in the playoffs. It can't just be led by LeBron and AD. So this is a positive sign, as well as Kyle Kuzma, who contributed 11 points. So this is all great to see because these are the type of players that you need to step up the rest of this round as well as into the finals, because you know what you're going to get from LeBron. You know more than likely what you're going to get from AD. And even Rondo has shown that he can be a consistent contributor on this team. So it's more a question mark of what we're going to see from KCP, Markieff Morris, Kyle Kuzma, Alex Caruso. If those guys are able to continue to play at the level they have been, I see no reason why the Lakers can't sweep this series. The scariest part is I don't think the Lakers have even hit their pinnacle yet. If you look at the minutes comparison, Jokic and Murray, so they played 14 games prior to this series, coming back from a 3-1 deficit in both the first round and the second round. The only team in NBA history to ever come back from 2 separate 3-1 deficits in the same postseason. They've played a combined 1,130 playoff minutes this postseason already. To compare that to the Lakers, Davis and LeBron have only played 755. So that's nearly 400 less minutes together on the floor. That's a great sign for the Lakers. Their two best players have been dominant while on the court together, and I think the best part is, unlike Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, who couldn't coexist, LeBron and Anthony Davis don't mind deferring to each other at different times. If anything, LeBron wants to give Anthony Davis as many opportunities as possible, as this is LeBron's 11th conference finals, and it's only Davis's first. So he needs this experience more than LeBron does. At this point in his career, LeBron has done everything a player can imagine doing in their career. And the only thing that matters for him is championships and getting this team to believe in themselves. He is already, I think we can say, might be the most decorated playoff performer in NBA history. I know he doesn't have the same amount of championships as Jordan, but if he makes the finals this year, that will be his 10th finals appearance. His 10th finals appearance. Only 3 other players in league history have at least 10 finals appearance. However, despite what happened in Game 1, being on cruise control nearly the entire second half and dominating the Nuggets, it's only one game, and the Nuggets have proven that just because you lose Game 1 or you're down in the series doesn't mean you're out. And if the Lakers end up losing Game 2, they're back to where they started, which is even with the Nuggets. Despite the Lakers' great performance in Game 1, it doesn't mean anything. They need to put it behind themselves, recalibrate themselves going into this next game, because nothing that happened in Game 1 matters anymore. It doesn't matter that Rondo played amazing. It doesn't matter that Anthony Davis balled out. None of that matters anymore. All that matters is what they do in Game 2. And if they don't show up and the Nuggets tie the series, they're back to ground zero. So make sure to tune in to Sunday's Game 2, Lakers-Nuggets. Should be an exciting one. I don't see the Nuggets folding like they did in Game 1. And I believe the officiating, now that it's been pointed out in the media, I think it's going to be even more examined than it was in Game 1. So moving on, we are talking Giannis Antetokounmpo, back-to-back MVP winners, what that means in terms of NBA history, and LeBron was just a little ticked off about it. That and more after this commercial break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So the MVP was announced this past Friday, and I don't know about you, but I was not surprised by the results at all. I mean, if you look at the numbers, you look at the team's records, Giannis Antetokounmpo was his award to lose at this point, and he deserves it. He received 85 out of 101 first-place votes, earning 962 points from a global panel of 100 sports writers and broadcasters, as well as the one fan vote. Let's see what this back-to-back MVP means for Giannis. He now joins Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Moses Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell as the only players to win the award back-to-back. Out of that list, Nash and now Giannis are the only players to win back-to-back with no ring, but Giannis is still only 25 years old. Let's remember, guys, Jordan didn't win until he was 28. Same with LeBron. Curry was 25. He's one of the few players outside of Magic Johnson to be a superstar player and win a title that early on in his career. It took Wilt Chamberlain a little bit of time. Dirk didn't win one until later on in the second half of his career. I mean, and then you got to look at all the great players who have never won a ring. Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, John Stockton. And look at all the guys who had to team up with other players. Clyde Drexler had to go to Houston with Hakeem. LeBron had to go team up in Miami, so it takes time. Some guys had to link up with other players. So, I mean, again, the guy's only 25 years old and has been nothing but remarkable since he's come into the league, has made great strides every year, has worked on his jump shot, probably the only weakness left in his game, and free throw shooting. And not only does he join this elite list of Hall of Famers as the only players to win back-to-back MVPs, he's now one of only 3 players joining Michael Jordan in 1987-88 and Hakeem Olajuwon in 1993-94 to win both the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award in the same season. The only other players to accomplish that feat, not in the same season, but over the course of their entire careers, the Admiral David Robinson and Kevin Garnett. So Giannis is now in elite company among the greatest players in NBA history. And I know everyone wants to talk about him not making it to the finals this year, not winning a title once again with his team, having the best record in the NBA for the second year in a row. But these things take time, and you can't, this is 2 years now. It's only been 2 years where Giannis has been this, I'd say maybe 3 years now that he's been this dominant in the conversation for the best player in the NBA. Everyone is in this win now mode or this win now era where if you don't do it now, you have to go jump ship and go to another team. But it doesn't have to be like that. He can do this on his own terms. He still has a lot of growing to do. And speaking back to the Defensive Player of the Year, 2 stats for you. He led the NBA in field goal percentage allowed at the rim. That's a minimum of 100 field goals attempted, and field goal percentage allowed as the closest defender. So very impressive, had one of the best years in NBA history. If you look at it this way, he posted a 31.9 player efficiency rating. That's the highest in a season in NBA history. And last year, you got to love the humility of this player. Last year, in July of 2019, he told Bucks fans, quote, "Please, after this day, don't call me MVP until I win it again next year," end quote. You won it again, so I think, Giannis, you deserve it. You are the MVP. You are the best regular season player in the NBA. The playoffs, not so much, but we'll see what the future beholds. Again, you're only 25 years old. You've made great strides throughout your career, and I didn't think you could do any better than what you did last year. This year was even more incredible, averaging over 29 points a game, 13.5 rebounds, nearly 6 assists, 56% from the field, and all of this in only 30 minutes of play per game. The Bucks were one of the best teams, not only this year, but in league history, beating teams by an average of 10 points a game. And Bucks fans, I want to let you know you can breathe lightly knowing Giannis wants to stay for now. After accepting the award, he's told Ernie Johnson on NBA TV, quote, "As long as everybody's fighting for the same thing, ... which is to be a champion, I don't see why not be in Milwaukee for the next 15 years. It's got to feel good as a Bucks fan to hear that, because this is a very, very special player. Arguably one of the top 40 players in NBA history already. The guy is uber talented. Gets to the basket like no one we've seen since a Shaquille O'Neal. And last week, in a 3-hour meeting in Milwaukee, the Bucks co-owner and governor, Mark Lasry, made it clear to the Greek Freak that the franchise is willing to spend into the luxury tax to deliver him a championship-level supporting cast. I think we've seen now that, yes, Chris Middleton is a great player, but I don't think he can be this number 2 option on a Bucks team that wants to win the championship. They need to get a guard. You got the big man. You have your Shaq, your Wilt Chamberlain, your Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and now he needs his Kobe, his Dwayne Wade, his Magic Johnson next to what he brings to the table. There's rumors right now about Chris Paul. He is 35 years old, but he showed us this year that he can still play at a high level. And it's not like Chris Paul needs to be with the Bucks for 3-4 years on the road. They just need him for next year, maybe the year after that. And I think he has enough in the tank to help Giannis get to that next level, take away some of the ball handling duties from Giannis so he can play more off the ball, where I think he will find lots of success. LeBron was a little upset about the MVP voting. After game 1, after his team torched the Nuggets, he had this quote: "Starts pissed me off. That's my true answer. It pisses me off because out of 101 votes, I got 16 first place votes. That's what's pissed me off more than anything." Not saying that the winner wasn't deserving of the MVP, but that pissed me off, and I finished second a lot of my career, either from a championship and now 4 times as an MVP, end quote. So LeBron has finished runner-up 4 times, which is now tied for the most all-time with Jerry West and Larry Bird. And this is actually his closest second-place finishing only 209 MVP voting points between him and Antetokounmpo. But LeBron, I love you. You're my favorite player in the NBA. But let's be real. You did not stand a chance against Giannis this season. And let's take a quick look at the numbers. Giannis led LeBron in the following categories: points per game, field goal percentage, total rebounds per game, blocks per game. And now let's look at the advanced stats. Box plus minus, VORP, which is value over a replacement player. How many points better are you than the average player? PER, and as I pointed out, Giannis had the highest PER in NBA history. Win shares and true shooting percentage. And again, Giannis only played 30.4 minutes per game. That is 4 minutes less than LeBron. Looking now at LeBron's side, he did lead in the following categories: 3-point percentage, assists, steals, and free throw percentage. But if we look at the free throw and the 3-point percentage, he was better, but not that much better. Giannis shot a mediocre 30-ish% from three. LeBron was at 35%. His free throw percentage for Giannis, 63%. For LeBron, right around 70, 69-ish%. So it's not like he was that much better. And that is two facets of LeBron's game that's similar to Giannis he struggles in. Shooting from deep and shooting from the free throw line. And now let's look at the team records. Giannis's Bucks finished with the best record in the NBA. Again, like last season, and had the 12th best point differential in NBA history at 10.08. However, look prior to the restart, the Bucks had a plus 11.2 point differential. That's good for 5th all time. And in the bubble, they struggled. They went 3-5 in the seeding games. So honestly, if the Bucks had played a regular 82 game season, they would have a point differential somewhere in that 4 to 8 range. Not only did Giannis's team have the best record in the NBA, they had one of the best point differentials in NBA history. And yes, LeBron was great in his role as a distributor for the Lakers, especially after they flamed out last season, not even making a playoff appearance. I have one telling stat in support of LeBron. LA was plus 173 in 862 minutes with James on the court without Anthony Davis in the regular season, their second best player. So without their second best player, they were a positive 173 with just LeBron on the court. In the 677 minutes LA played with Davis on the court without James, the Lakers were minus 29. So that means, with LeBron on the court without even Davis, they're still a top 1, 2, or 3 team in the Western Conference. Without LeBron and just Anthony Davis, they're barely, if even, a playoff team. And it's interesting now to look at Giannis in comparison to LeBron. In 2009 and 2010, LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers had the best record in the NBA. LeBron won back-to-back MVPs in 2009 and 2010. And exactly like Giannis, lost in the Eastern Conference Finals the first year he won MVP. And exactly what Giannis did this year, lost in the Eastern Conference semifinals the year he won his second MVP. So if this shows anything for Giannis, there's still a lot of room to grow and a lot of room to develop. Because LeBron, again, didn't become a winner until 3 years later in Miami after winning his first MVP. Let's see how Giannis looks in 2 more years when he's 27, 28 years old, the same age when Michael and LeBron won their first championship. And yes, LeBron did not win the MVP. It sucks, whatever, but all that matters right now is championships, and LeBron still owns this league. In his age 35 and 17th season, his team, unlike Giannis's, is still in the playoffs on the cusp of making his 10th finals appearance. And looking at players that have made 10 finals appearances, it would be LeBron, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with 10, Sam Jones, sweet stroke Sam Jones with 11, and the champion of all champions, Bill Russell. The Lakers are up 1-0 right now on the Nuggets. If they can pull off and win this series, LeBron will be in very, very elite company. 10 finals appearances. Yes, I know he's 3-6 so far, but let's say he gets to 4-6 with 10 finals appearances, and outside of the 2010-2011 series against the Dallas Mavericks, he has been the underdog in every series. He has been undermanned against the Warriors, probably the best dynasty in NBA history, against the 2007 Spurs, one of the best dynasties of 2 decades ago. It's just incredible what he continues to do even nowadays. I mean, look at him on the court. He's got gray in his beard, and he is balling on guys 10 years his junior. Yes, Giannis might be the MVP of the regular season, but King James is still the most valuable player when it comes to playoff time. And he will continue to be the MVP until otherwise noted. Kawhi is out. Giannis is out. Chris Paul, James Harden, Russell Westbrook are all out, but King James is still standing. And we'll see what he does tonight in Game 2. Now, moving on, we will look at Boston, who won last night to bring them to within one game of the Heat. We'll see what the return of Gordon Hayward meant for them, the scoring spree from their guards, and much more. Stay tuned for that after this commercial break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And now we're back to the other series in the Eastern Conference, Boston versus Miami. And after the first two games, it really looked that Boston was down for the count. But like they've done all postseason, they've been inconsistent with their play. Even in the series against Philly, although they swept the series, they did allow an undermanned Philly team to come back into several games. And with last series, they were up 2-0 against Toronto. OG Anunoby hits the game-winning three in Game 3, allows them to come back, tie the series at 2. It takes them to 7 games, really against a tough Toronto team, but a team that really struggled offensively the entire series. If you look at the box scores and you look at the numbers they were putting up, it really shouldn't have gone 7 games. In reality, Boston won 6 out of those 7 games. It's never fun to have to win 6 out of 7 games in a series when that past series should have been done in 5 or 6 games. But the Celtics took control last night, winning 117-106 to pull within 2-1. And after blowing early leads in games 1 and 2, the Celtics were finally able to finish it off in Game 3. And their trio of stars, Brown, Tatum, and Walker, all scored 20-plus points, 26 from Jalen, 25 from Jason Tatum, and 21 from Kemba Walker, who's looked like he's finally past that slump that he exhibited in Games 1 and the last 2 games in the previous series. They combined to go 28 of 53, 7 of 16 from deep, and for good measure, Tatum added 14 rebounds and 8 assists as he was the primary playmaker for the Celtics last night and this entire series, as he's averaging 25, 11, and nearly 6 assists per game, adding in 1 block and 1 steal. He has been phenomenal. I mean, realistically, the Celtics should be up 3-0, but this Heat team is tough. They have great players who they just know their roles, and they play them to perfection. Bam Adebayo arguably is the best player on this Heat team. Put up 27, 16, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. He became the second youngest player in postseason history to produce that stat line since blocks and steals were first recorded in 1983 and 84. The youngest player to do so, another great Hall of Fame center, Hakeem Olajuwon. So there was some turmoil last game after Game 2. Marcus Smart and several other players are heard yelling at each other in the locker room after the game. Jason Tatum had this quote about that locker room incident after Game 3. Quote, anybody that's played sports, played in a team game, we're not supposed to be happy being down 2-0. If you are, then you don't care. We care about this. Basketball is a game of emotions, so we want guys to be frustrated, be upset, to care. It's nothing personal. We just have to figure some things out. It's nothing more than that. You're supposed to talk it out, figure it out, and come together for the next game. Leave what happened in the past because you can't change it. And that's exactly what the Celtics did last night. They ran into some of the same issues, not being able to close out a gritty Miami team. But in the end, they came out on top, 117-106. A big change in the game was putting Marcus Smart on Goran Dragic. We'll get into that in a sec, but let's look at the Heat now. This is only their second loss in the entire playoffs. This marks their best starts in the postseason at 10-2, tying them with the 2005, 2012, and 2013 Miami Heat teams. They swept the Pacers in the first round. They beat the Bucks 4-1, and now they lead the series 2-1. This stat is very impressive. Wow, this just shows the kind of team that Miami is, that they're never out of the game. And here's the stat. Miami never led in this game. That just marked the first time that's happened in the team's last 70 games. It's only happened one other time this season, November 23rd versus Philadelphia. Miami is the type of team where they can play with anyone. They're never going to be blown out. And they're always going to be coming at you, always within a few points. As we've seen in the games 1 and 2, they wouldn't go down easy, and they came back to win both games. They find themselves up 2-1 in the series. But Boston does have the return of Gordon Hayward. And although the stat line wasn't plentiful, he still has a tremendous impact on the game, and it takes away minutes from lesser players in the Celtics rotation. So I'm going to now look at some numbers I like and numbers I don't like. And the first thing I liked, the number 4. That's the number of players that scored 20-plus points for the Celtics. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, and Marcus Smart added 20 points himself, going 9 for 9 from the free throw line down the stretch in the fourth quarter. Next, what I don't like, and this was probably the most important part and the reason the Celtics won this game, minus 29. That's Goran Dragic's plus minus in 28 minutes of play last night. Just look at his games 1 and 2. He averaged 27 points, shooting 55% from the field, 46% from 3, and a perfect 100% from the free throw line on 6 attempts. Smart's defense on Dragic, the biggest difference in the game. In the first 2 games, Kemba Walker was guarding Dragic, and he torched him. Brad Stevens was smart enough to make that adjustment, and with Gordon Hayward coming back, that allows the defense to do the things that they're doing now. Kemba Walker played on Jay Crowder for most of the game. Someone who doesn't seem to take advantage of the size difference between the two players. He went 2 of 10, all his shots coming from behind the arc. The next number I like, 60. That is the number of points in the paint for the Celtics. A playoff high this year. In comparison, Miami only had 36. Over games 1 and 2, the Celtics only combined for 72 points in the paint, which makes no sense as the Celtics have struggled mightily against Miami's 2-3 zone, which shouldn't be an issue for a Celtics team that has the personnel to beat people off the dribble. They have the penetrators and playmakers all over the floor, especially with the return of Gordon Hayward. The Celtics have a lot of guys who can initiate offense and who can finish at the paint. They finally showed it in this game, as this is a team that all they should be doing is dribble drive, bouncing it out to a man in the corner if he's open. But for the most part, these guys should be able to get to the rim against a undersized Miami team. Next, number 4, what I don't like, number 4, the number of 3-pointers made by players on the Miami Heat not named Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson. Outside of those 2 players, Miami was only 4 of 24 from deep. After shooting 44% in Game 1, the Heat have shot only 32.6% and 27.3% in the last 2 games. That's not going to get it done for this team. Honestly, this might be the worst thing that could have happened to the Miami Heat. Although they lead the series 2-1 due to the Lakers being a couple games behind the Celtics and Heat, the league has decided to move Game 4 to this upcoming Wednesday. So this gives the Celtics a couple extra days of rest. They now have the momentum after winning Game 3. With Gordon Hayward returning as well, this will give him a couple extra days to rest after playing his first game in over 5 weeks. Although they are behind 2-1, the Celtics are in a great position here, especially with Games 1 and 2. They could have easily won both. They could be up 3-0. They should be thankful they're only down 2-1. So now to Gordon Hayward's return. He was effective in a limited role. He did not shoot great. He was 2 of 7 from the field, but added 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, a block, and only 1 turnover. Someone that is able to space the floor, again, takes away minutes from other players that, as a Celtics fan, you really don't want to see out there, such as Ojale, Cantor, Williams, Wanamaker. So he played 31 minutes, which is a lot for someone who hasn't played an NBA game in over 5 weeks. And yeah, he was great out there. And this gives the Celtics their best small ball lineup. Walker, Brown, Smart, Hayward, and Tatum. All 5 guys are capable of dribble drive, can all shoot the 3 at a solid percentage, really have no weaknesses offensively. On the defensive side, they might be a little small, but Marcus Smart, first team all defense, one of the best defenders in the NBA. Jason Tatum can guard multiple positions 1 through 4. Brown, another great defender. Same with Hayward. Walker is probably the only weak man on the defensive side for this team. So yes, with Hayward back in the lineup, it gives Brad Stevens several more options than what he had before. And realistically, I think that Miami might be in trouble. I mean, they played great in those first 2 games, but they had to come back, and it's hard to come back so many times, and it just really drains your team to have to be coming back nearly every part of the game, as they did in 1 and 2, and even Game 3. The Heat just don't seem to go away. In Game 1, they came back from 14 down in the fourth quarter to win in overtime. In Game 2, a 15-point comeback in the second half. And even last night, Boston led by as many as 20 in the fourth quarter, and the Heat cut it to 5 with less than a minute remaining. If it wasn't for some missed free throws and threes, the Heat could have taken the lead. What makes this team so tough? Jimmy Butler, as we've talked about so many times, he's just a dog. Bam Adebayo, one of the best young players and defenders in the NBA. Goran Dragic, someone who has always played at a high level throughout his career, has jumped from team to team, was in Phoenix, came to Miami, played with the Rockets for a little bit. Andre Iguodala, a finals MVP and another great gritty defender. Jay Crowder, a big body, and someone who has proven to be a valuable player on a playoff team and has postseason experience. And then Tyler Hero, who plays well above his talent level. And then Duncan Robinson, someone who came from a D3 college, went to Michigan, able to make it in the NBA. So a lot of these guys on this Heat team, they just have chips on their shoulder throughout their careers. Jimmy Butler's the same way. Small community college in Texas, was able to get to Marquette, make it to the league, and that's something that you want from your team. Guys who were always taken for granted or were not given the same opportunities or had to fight for everything they got in their careers, and that's what this team is made of. Hustlers, blue-collar mentality players. And that's something that I think Pat Riley has always looked for from players throughout his coaching career, whether it was at the New York Knicks. I mean, that LA team was very talented, but once he got to the New York Knicks, he had to work with a different kind of player. And then in his early years in Miami and throughout his tenure, I think has a type of player he looks for, someone who's not going to shy away from the big moment, someone who has the work ethic, which I think most of these players on this Miami team have. But I think the Celtics may now be in the driver's seat, although they are down 2-1. Gordon Hayward coming back is huge for this team, opens up a lot of possibilities, and again, takes away minutes from lesser players that you don't want to see in the rotation for a team that has finals aspirations. Game 4 is on Wednesday, so it gives them a couple days to recuperate, especially for these teams that have played every other day since the playoffs began, outside of the rest between series. We'll have to wait and see for a couple more days what happens in the next game, but I'm very confident that the Celtics could take control of this series. That's not good for me because if you remember from last podcast, I got a bet down for a date with a girl that I've been wanting to go on a date with since I was 15 years old. Pete, if you can hear me, don't let up. Don't let this Celtics team come back in this series. You got this. You're up 2-1. You got Jimmy Butler, one of the best defensive players and leaders in our league. You have Bam Adebayo, one of the best young players in the league. You have two of the best sharpshooters, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. You have guys with vast playoff experience, Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, Finals MVP, stopped LeBron, was the whole reason he got voted Finals MVP. You have Goran Dragic, who's just itching for an NBA championship, probably just as much as any player on this team. You guys have the talent, you have the work ethic, so let's get it done. Get me that date. When we return, we are looking at the All-NBA teams, what they got right, what they got wrong. More on that after this break. Stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for staying with us today, and I apologize for those who thought we were about to get into Nick's picks, but with the All-NBA teams announced this past Thursday, I thought we would take a look at this, and let's get to the results. So LeBron and Giannis were unanimous first team, getting all 500 possible votes. So the way that it works in voting is you can be either voted for first team, 5 points, second team, 3 points, and third team, 1 point. So LeBron, Giannis got 500 points each. This marked LeBron's 16th All-NBA team, passing 15-time All-NBA team selections Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe Bryant, and Tim Duncan. This is also his 13th first-team selection, which continues his NBA record. Nobody is even in sight of him. Karl Malone, second most with 11. And let's look who we have. So guard James Harden of the Houston Rockets made his 6th appearance. Luka Doncic, not only is he the first player to be named All-NBA first team in either his first or second season since Tim Duncan in 98-99, but becomes the 6th player named to the All-NBA first team at age 21 or younger. Very impressive. He is the future of this league. And I'm excited to see what he continues to do next year after getting some playoff experience under his belt. Then you have Giannis, who made his 2nd consecutive first-team selection. And then Anthony Davis, who made his 4th appearance on the first team. And this is the first time that 2 teammates have made first team in the same season since Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. Big accomplishment there. Let's look at the full list. So we have Davis, LeBron this year, Stoudemire and Nash in 06, 07. And then Shaq and Kobe did it 3 times. That's an NBA record for teammates. Jordan and Pippen in 95 and 96. Surprised that they don't have more. Malone and Stockton did it 2 times. Bird and McHale in 86 87. Magic and Kareem did it twice. And then Irving and Malone in 82 and 83. Now, moving on to the All-NBA second team, Damian Lillard, who, if the voting was done after the seeding games, might have had a push to be on the first team. I feel like he just never gets enough credit, and it's always, this, I think in his mind, is a slight, because I think he believes that he deserves to be on that first team. But LeBron led the league in assists, best record in the Western Conference, and James Harden had another great scoring season for the Houston Rockets, averaging around 35 a game. Now, next up, Chris Paul got into the second team this year, a rejuvenated season, his 9th total appearance, and many people did not think he had this kind of season in him. Was traded to OKC along with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and yeah, really, they had a 0.02% chance of making the playoffs. They got in, took the Rockets to 7 games, and we're hoping to see where he goes next, whether it's to stay in Oklahoma City or go join Giannis and the Bucks and help the young Buck get a title. Next, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, and then center Nikola Jokic. And then our third team, Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook making his 9th appearance as well, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, and Rudy Gobert. And we have to remember that there's a lot of great NBA players that didn't even play at all this season or missed a majority of the season, looking at Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, and Kyrie Irving. So this opened up spots for first-timers. Before I go into those, it amazes me how much talent is in this league. We have about 25 to 30 nearly superstar players in our league. It just shows how far the NBA has come. We got 7-footers shooting threes. We have guards that play almost like centers in the way that they can score in the paint. And it's just amazing to see all the talent that the NBA has to offer our fans. Back to the guys who made their first appearance on an NBA team. We're looking at Pascal Siakam, Jason Tatum, and Simmons joining Luka Doncic as first-team selections to the All-NBA team. Comparing my list that I put on the podcast a couple months ago, and it was nearly spot on. I had 4 out of the 5 spots for the first team. I had Kawhi, though, over Luka Doncic. And then on the second team, I had Jimmy Butler on the second team, but Kawhi took his spot, pushing him to the third team. And then I had Luka Doncic, who made the first team, and Pascal Siakam, who made the second team. And then on the third team, and these are where 2 of my biggest snubs come, I had Westbrook, I had Jason Tatum, I had Rudy Gobert, but I had Chris Middleton in the second forward position and Bradley Beal in the first guard slot. But Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler were the ones who made it on that third team. Among the players who missed the cut, there's Chris Middleton, who had 82 points. Sixers center Joel Embiid, 79 voting points. Wizards guard Bradley Beal at 32. And Raptors guard Kyle Lowry with 26. And in my opinion, Bradley Beal was by far the biggest snub on this list. He is now the only player in NBA history to average 30-plus points and 6-plus assists and not make an All-NBA team. That's it. Nada, nobody else. It's Bradley Beal, and that is all. 30-plus points, 6-plus assists. To put that into perspective, there have only been 30 players in NBA history to have averaged 30-plus points over an entire season. Bradley Beal is one of them. And not only did he not make an All-NBA team, he didn't even make the NBA All-Star team. Straight disrespect from the voters, from the coaches around the league. This guy is a baller. But let's be realistic, the Wizards are bad. Horrendous. No one expected them to make the playoffs this year, and they definitely weren't in contention at all as they finished the season 25-47, going winless in the bubble. And then my next snub, Chris Middleton. The guy averaged nearly 21 points a game on a nearly 50-40-90 season and played for the best team in the league. There have only been 8 such seasons in NBA history, and Chris Middleton was about to be the 9th. He also posted career highs in points, assists, rebounds, plus field goal and free throw percentage. And this guy can't even make a third team. Siakam should not even have been on any of the teams. Somehow he made a second. Yes, he had a great year, but his efficiency went down dramatically after becoming the key player in their offense. They were more of a defensive team that, yes, he did provide an extra punch for a team that was missing Kawhi Leonard. Chris Middleton, I think's impact was just as big as the impact that Pascal Siakam had on the Raptors. Now, paydays. Great news from a financial perspective for Siakam and Simmons. As a result of Siakam's second team nod and Simmons' third team spot, both players will now earn starting salaries worth 28% of the 2020 salary cap rather than the 25% they got at the beginning of the contract's extensions they had signed the last year. The exact value of those contracts, though, will depend on where the 2020-21 cap falls. Assuming that it does stay the same due to COVID and everything going on, that would be $109 million. Taking that 28% of that, Siakam's 4-year extension would now be worth $136.9 million instead of $122.2 million. That's a nice $15 million bonus for making the All-NBA team. For Simmons, his 5 years will now be worth $177.2 million rather than $158 million that he signed at the beginning, or that it was at the beginning of that contract. So a nice $19 million in cash for Simmons. And then on the unfortunate side, Embiid would have become eligible for the Supermax in 2021 had he earned an All-NBA spot. But on the other side, he will now have the opportunity next season to make an All-NBA team and gain that eligibility. So I think looking at these lists, looking at mine, looking at the real one, I think all the players, for the most part, that should have made an All-NBA team, made an All-NBA team. I would say Chris Middleton is someone that I think should have taken a spot away from Pascal Siakam, as I mentioned. But now looking at it, Jason Tatum was the best player on a title contender. I don't like all the bullshit, though, about how Chris Middleton had more points than Russell Westbrook, but since Chris Middleton is technically a forward, but I would say he's a guard as well, Russell Westbrook gets a spot over Chris Middleton. But I think Chris Middleton had a great efficient season for one of the best teams in league history, and has nothing to show for it. Disappointing in the least. Hopefully he'll make up for it next year and lead this team deep into the playoffs. He's now getting that reputation as someone who can produce during the regular season, similar to Bledsoe, but can't seem to get it going in the playoffs. Before we go, let's take one last look at the All-NBA team and just think about LeBron James. He made his 16th All-NBA selection, but 13 first-team selections. Think about that. For 13 seasons, he was voted on by the NBA media and broadcast personnel that he was a top 5 player in the league. Basically means he finished at least top 5 in MVP voting 13 out of his 17 seasons. I don't think we've ever seen that in nearly any sport, whether it was the NFL, the MLB, or the NBA. We're watching something special right now, and I really think he's going to take the ship this year. Only 7 more victories, and he will get that 4th title, putting him in exclusive company with Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as superstar players with at least 4 championships. And again, right now we are seeing some of the best NBA basketball the league has ever seen. You can look at the past and how great those players were, but the talent level just continues to get higher and higher. We're seeing things that we've never seen before at the NBA level, and it's just amazing to watch. I want to thank everyone once again for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and happy Jewish New Year. It's Rosh Hashanah, so Chova to all my Jewish brethrens out there. Thank you again for tuning in. As always, like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Leave a comment. That helps us out. We're continuing to grow this brand. We're really happy about all the progress we've made over these last several months. Have a great night, and we'll see you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.